Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the City Council meeting and public hearing for April 14th, 2025. Appreciate you all joining us here. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order, and I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for. We always begin our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance, so if you're willing and able, please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we'll start off with a couple of presentations and proclamations. Proclamation for Alexander Lidbeck, University of Michigan football champion, and proclamation for William Wagner, University of Michigan football champion. So if everyone could just join me in front of this dais, there, the microphone. Families, teammates, you're all welcome to join us up front. This isn't just for me and him.
Mayor, as you're leaving your chair and going down front, just for your benefit and for the benefit of the public, I'm the only one that can see Alexander, but I've got him here on my iPad. He's connected, but out of the area. So at the appropriate time, he may offer just a couple of comments. We'll do it from my iPad. But that's why you don't see him standing here, but I can promise you he's involved because he's here on my screen. So, yes.
So hello. How are you? I'm doing very well. If you will, please introduce yourselves to the public.
Yeah, Lee Wagner, I'm William's dad.
Michelle Wagner, his mother.
I'm Will Wagner.
I'm Sophia Lidback. My son Alexander's the one who's on Zoom.
I thought it might.
Yes.
I'm Percy Lidback. I'd like to ask Coach Lassier, who's now athletic director at Alpharetta High School, instrumental in making these things happen.
Come on down. I know. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Alpharetta is a wonderful school for everybody in the audience, but the two young men here tonight exemplify what Alpharetta is all about as far as their perseverance and their hard work, both in this classroom and on the football field. So at the school, we can't be more proud of them than we are.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Dorito, do you have anything to share?
I feel very honored to be here this evening. I know the Lidbacks and the Wagners for quite a number of years, and my kids went to school with them and played football. So we have a little bit of a history, a really positive history. And what I think about tonight is the mayor will read the proclamations, which, I'm not going to repeat what's in the proclamations, but I want to speak more personally about these two gentlemen. They come from a great city of support, a great high school of support, but the critical reason why these two gentlemen have been both successful on the football field as well as in the classroom is because they have a tremendous family support system, and they have faith in God and what they do. So that drives them to this success. It doesn't surprise me that William and Alex has achieved what they've achieved. They've had a tremendous history with the Michigan football team. Watched them on TV. I've seen you a lot. I saw Lidback every so often. But I also want to recognize the other son of the Lidbacks, Julian, who's serving in the Army. He's on deployment, I think you told me earlier. So thank you for his service. Tremendous families that raise tremendous children who have been academically successful and sport-wise. The proclamations will say it all. So congratulations, William, and Alex, if you can hear me. Take care. I don't know. You don't have to talk.
Well, the agenda says I'm supposed to recognize Alexander first. So, right. We're going to shake things up a little bit. No worries. So it's easier for me to read from the paper rather than these framed ones because they got the glare from the lights. So first proclamation is not the one on your agenda. This is for William Wagner. William, it's a pleasure to have you here. Congratulations. So I'm going to read this proclamation, and I'll allow Councilman Dorito to hand you your placard and proclamation. So this is a proclamation by the mayor and the council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia. William Wagner, University of Michigan, football champion. Whereas William Wagner, an Alpharetta High School graduate, received a national championship title as number 49 of the University of Michigan's football team after their win against the University of Washington. As Michigan's starting long snapper, William is charged with getting the ball cleanly from the center to the kicker, and he has over 500 career snaps. And whereas, before earning his championship title, William was a part of the Michigan football team who dominated the University of Alabama during 2024 ReliQuest Bowl in Tampa, Florida. And whereas William Wagner was a 2024 finalist for the Patrick Manley Award, in 2024, an award that recognizes the best college football long snappers, also known as football's unsung workhorses. And whereas, because of the successes as a long snapper, William was invited to participate in the 2025 National Football League Scouting Combine during its week-long talent showcase. And whereas not only has William Wagner been integral to the success of Michigan's football team, but he is also a two-time Big Ten All-Academic honoree and a 2024 Big Ten Distinguished Scholar. He earned his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and his master's degree in applied manufacturing. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, do hereby recognize Alpharetta High School graduate and distinguished long snapper, William Wagner. So proclaimed this 14th day of April, 2025, by the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia. Congratulations, sir. Squeeze on in. Come on, man.
We're all together. They're part of our family, too.
Right here on the corner of the dais. And,
A little max headroom action.
that way we'll do a proclamation in technology style. So.
Y'all are certainly welcome to join us in on this one as well. Be part of the team.
They're the reason we ended up in Michigan. Yeah, so,
All right. Would you like to say anything, Percy?
I'd love to, yeah. Listen, I see these young men right here. These dreams don't start senior year. They start when they're 10, 12 years old. And it's a commitment for, 6 to 8 years. And then dreams do come true. And it takes, as a city like Alpharetta, it takes Coach Lassier, it takes parents, teammates, and I just can't, I've met several times with Mayor about connecting the high school because there's so much connection. And at the end of the day, these guys will be sitting in those chairs as they grow older and sports is behind them. So thank you. Thank Coach Lassier. He was instrumental. My wife, my friends, and so on. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, sir. Now, is there any way for Xander to speak?
Yeah.
Alex, if you unmute, you're on.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for this honor. It's unbelievable. God is so good, and just thank you so much to my parents, all my family and friends and coaches, and Wags and I are both super proud to be from Alpharetta and proud to be from Georgia, and we represent it with pride. And we talk about how much we miss it being up here in the tundra, and just thank you guys so much again. It's an honor, and can't wait to be home soon.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. Sorry you couldn't be here this evening. So I will go ahead and read the proclamation, unless Mom wants to say anything.
I'm good. I think it's all been said.
Okay. So this is a proclamation by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, for Alexander Lidback, University of Michigan football champion. Whereas Alexander Lidback, an Alpharetta High School graduate, received a national championship title as number 46 of the University of Michigan's football team after their win against the University of Washington. And whereas, as one of Michigan's linebackers, Alexander made the collegiate debut as a special teams member against Northwestern. He earned playing time after being a preferred walk-on, and whereas Alexander Lidback is a two-time Big Ten All-Academic and will graduate from the University of Michigan this May with a 3.4 grade point average, earning his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, serving as an inspiration for student athletes who strive for greatness in both academics and athletics. Soon after graduation, Alexander will begin his career with Lockheed Martin Aeronautics Company in their Operation Leadership Development Program in Connecticut. And whereas his contributions to the University of Michigan have played a role not only in the success of the program, but also by inspiring and encouraging his teammates, and by also demonstrating exceptional skill, leadership, and sportsmanship on and off the field. Alexander will continue to represent not only his alma mater, but also his hometown with honor and integrity. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Alpharetta, do hereby recognize Alpharetta High School graduate and Wolverine linebacker Alexander Lidback, so proclaimed this 14th day of April 2025 by the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia. Congratulations.
Give the proclamation to the boss of the family.
Yes.
Is that obvious?
Thank you very much.
Let's get pictures. Come on. She's got the proclamation. Squeeze in, brother.
All right, Alexander, smile. Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. That's the first time we've been Thank you very much.
Congrats on taking you. Congratulations. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Doug. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Good friend for a long time.
Thank you for inviting me. Good seeing you. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
It was so good to meet you.
So the next item up on our agenda is the work session items, and the first work session item is the Municipal Court Tax Refund Intercept Program, otherwise known as TRIP. Ms. Lappin, Mr. Lagerbloom, I believe, will be presenting.
Yeah, I'm just going to let Brooke handle this presentation. Obviously, we welcome the judge tonight. It's great to have him with us, and he's here to answer questions too. So we'll turn it over to the court.
see I do this a lot, so I know how to use the technology. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to provide some additional information about the Tax Refund Intercept Program, which is provided by the Administrative Office of the Courts. Currently, when a defendant is sentenced to pay a fine in the court, and they're not able to pay at the time of the plea or sentencing, we place them on probation for a period of 6 or 12 months, depending on the underlying offense. If they're not able to pay during that time, the probation officer may bring them back before the court to have a modification hearing where the judge has the option to do a couple things, one being converted to community service. If they completely fail to pay, then we might have a revocation hearing. At that point, the other option would be to take them into custody and cancel or revoke the probation term and have the time sentenced in jail. The Tax Refund Intercept Program offers the court another means of collecting those fees. After entering into an MOU with the AOC, the court is able to submit those fines that are due to the AOC, and the requirements are they have to have a minimum of a $25 due, and it has to be a disposition date within 7 years. Once those are submitted, the Department of Revenue then offers them an option to appeal. They have 30 days to file that appeal. If they fail to do so or it is still upheld, once the debt is deemed valid, twice a year the Department of Revenue will intercept those funds from their state income tax and disperse them to the cities. I'd be happy to answer any other questions if you have them.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Lappin?
If I could, just, Mr. Mayor, the reason I won't put this in a workshop topic is because I wanted to make sure that it was explained, because it's not something that courts have done for really any length of time, and it's just, we would be one of the first in this area, I think, that would move towards having this as an option in our toolkit with the court. So the workshop gives it just the opportunity to give you a sense as to what it does. If you say, yes, let's go ahead and put it in our toolbox, we'll bring an MOU back, and that would be your official action on it. But we just wanted to see if, I didn't think you'd have a lot of questions, but I didn't want to just bring it to the regular meeting as a first appearance either.
Do we have any questions? Councilman Dorito?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. At a very high level, can you kind of just summarize, is it refunds that the defendants would, through the Revenue Department, provide to the court after 7 years if the fines weren't paid? Is that?
So the Department of Revenue is intercepting their tax refund for state tax refund.
Okay.
Anything within this, AOC takes a $25 fee for processing it. That comes off the top first. And then any other courts that have also submitted it, depending on the date that they submitted the intercept, it goes off of that. And then they will continue to intercept that fund for the, I believe, 7 years until the tax is retired.
So what if the defendant is either unable to even file an income tax return, or if they do, they don't have refunds? What's the recourse? There probably isn't any. Right?
There isn't any. But this is
other
our
than what
only
you
option.
outlined earlier.
Right, because right now what'll happen is if the probation term expires, we have no recourse. Right now, we have 18 cases from the last year that fall under this that currently we're not doing anything with it. And there's a total of 7,000 outstanding in fines between those 18 cases. Without this program, we have no way of recouping that.
Okay, thank you, Burke.
Okay.
Any other questions? Judge, I'd be curious if you've had any experience with this in other courtrooms.
Mayor, I have not had any personal experience, but I am familiar with the other cities, or some of the other cities that are using it. Closest around here, I believe, is Woodstock. Griffin in central Georgia does. Some of the ones on the coastal counties do. And depending on their specific needs, they've all been pleased with it. And so I don't know that anybody who has had any problems with it one way or another once it's been implemented.
Okay.
So we fully support it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lagerblum?
Unless I see that there's any strong objection, this will come back for you in the form of an MOU for your action at a future meeting. Right. I'm seeing all the heads shaking in the right direction, so we'll be bringing it back at a future meeting.
Great.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Judge. So the next work session item will be the Union Hill Park and ice sports, including hockey, figure skating, and other public uses. Mr. Lagerblum.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So this one's going to take a couple minutes to explain. I hope that it's conversational and that we can ultimately arrive at some direction to one way or the other as to how we could move forward after tonight. I need to give you a little background, though, so you understand how we even got to tonight. And I will tell you that that background started maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. If you recall, we had 4 public comments at an evening meeting that said that programming was going away at the cooler down on Davis Drive because the use was converting from ice sports to pickleball. That is a true statement, and I did meet with the owner there, and he fully owns his building, and we all recognize that it's not our job to tell him what business to be in, but that use is converting, and in fact, the 2 sheets of ice that were in there are already melted. And so I got a phone call, as we mentioned to the 4 people that were here that night, get with the city next week and see if you could have a discussion on what might be a possibility, if there are even any possibilities. And so I did, in fact, get that phone call, and got that phone call from a group that was forming that had some interest, and they said, look, you have something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the Atlanta area, metro Atlanta area, and that's you already have a structure that is sufficient size to cover a hockey rink just because there was one there previously. So I started to, said, okay, fine, I'll have a first meeting, and we started to discuss and talk, and tried to throw some obstacles out there and say, okay, if we were going to have hurdles, what would they be? The least of which was a hurdle because of the concert series that occurs out there. One of the things that was proposed was to have to close in the facility. I had several lengthy conversations with Mr. Casto with Home by Dark, and one of the first things he told me the first time I talked with him was, enclosing it is a deal killer for a concert because of the way noise bounces. And so we took that feedback back to the group that was representing the hockey folks and said, just the concept's going to fail on the fact that there's got to be, you have to have it enclosed and they can't have it enclosed. That furthered the discussion to a second plan that came in that contemplated roll-up doors, or doors that function much like insulated garage doors, that would totally be out of the space that is open air today. They roll and go flat against the roof of the building. Once we got to a place where I thought that we had eliminated many of the hurdles, I invited each of the elected officials to a meeting with the folks, and I'm going to call them the hockey folks because I don't want to, we just know that means their group that's formed up, their board that has come together to try to solve this problem or this need, and offered individual meetings with the elected officials. Several of you all took me up on that. And had meetings. I was a part of some of them. I heard about some of them. Some of them were joint. A couple of folks were just busy or traveling and said, I'll look forward to further discussions about it later. And had varying degrees of response during those meetings. Some responses from our elected officials were, wish this would have come to us a couple of years ago because we could have really optimized and maximized the use of an otherwise underutilized park. To then there being some that were a little bit more challenged with how exactly would this work? And could this exactly work in the future? And how many of these kids are Alpharetta kids? And what's the revenues and expenses going to look like for this program? And some of the questions that just remained open. And it was at that point that I took the opportunity to schedule it for a workshop, and that's why we're here tonight. Is because we really have a fairly short runway to be able to either decide that there is something here that we can move forward with, or that we just meet or get to a point where we say we did our best, we tried everything we could. It just is wrong time, wrong location, wrong opportunity. But really, they've got tryouts later this month, and so I recognize that their urgency doesn't always match the urgency of the City Council. I'm not suggesting that you be put into a position where you have to make a fast decision. I want to give this project the opportunity to be heard before we just automatically say it's not going to work because of the timing. So we have solved for, at this point, we've solved for the legal issues as to whether or not this is possible and doable, and our city attorney and her office believe that it is. We've taken and eliminated as many, potentially most of the issues that would cause it not to be a viable concert venue, which it's being used for about 10 to 14 times a year now. We've talked about availability dates, non-availability dates, and they can speak for themselves if you choose to hear from them tonight or in the future, but have been very open to making sure that the facility is in its open state, which means the doors rolled up, the ice covered, the sight lines in the facility brought back to being normal so that it could function as a concert facility, concert venue, as many times as it does today. And in fact, there might even be some opportunity to have a concert venue that schedules around the calendar as opposed to just the warm months because, agreed upon in advance, there could be even concerts that happened in the wintertime when the doors were closed. So I promise I'm going to wrap up my comments and summarize where I hope we need to go with our discussion tonight. But I haven't found anything yet that has gotten in the way of saying that we shouldn't continue to explore this. And that's why I need to hear from you all, because it's gotten to that point where I think operationally it's possible. From a policy perspective, I want to know, and this is what I need to hear, I want to hear from y'all collectively, because I've heard from many of you individually. And sometimes I can cobble together what the majority of the council thinks when I talk with them individually, and sometimes I just can't. And sometimes this is the only forum to be able to do that. I'll highlight that they've come and they've asked for not a single dollar of city investment. So if we were to do some agreement, any of the renovations that would occur with their funding, their financing, their dollars. They would run and maintain and operate the facility. There would be opportunities for public enjoyment of the space where it's just open, and I'm going to use the wrong terms, they're probably going to chuckle, but I call it open skate or free skate or learn to skate or whatever. It's not it would not be in a model of saying, okay, this was a public asset, public facility today, it's not a public asset or public facility tomorrow. Candidly, between us, they've represented to me that if this option doesn't work, that we probably lose this group that was together for 28 years in Alpharetta, and they would have to rebuild once opportunities, maybe 2-3 years down the future, came into play, hopefully in Alpharetta. But it's highly unlikely with the amount of facilities that exist in Atlanta today that the 400 to 600 kids that are played in that program could just be dispersed to other ICE locations. So I don't think that, I just don't think that's possible. I've toured some of those facilities myself just to get a crash course in what this is. Like I went down to Center Ice down in Sandy Springs and said, if we needed to find some ice time down here, could you do it? And the owner was very candid and just said, I'm overbooked today. And, there's just really not an opportunity to do that. So if I highlight what I'm looking for tonight is I'm looking for a couple of things. One is, do you have interest in us continuing to pursue this? We're happy to answer questions along the way as to use and conversion, et cetera. But do you want to continue to do this? And if so, are you willing to operate on a timeline that is swift enough that they can meet some of the deadlines that they need to meet so that the tryouts could happen and they could potentially be operating and playing hockey in the fall at this location at Union Hill Park. So that's probably enough I've given that to many of you before in one-on-one situations, so that's probably enough of an update as leading remarks. And Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking for some direction to move forward tomorrow, full speed ahead, no speed ahead, medium speed ahead, whatever you all choose to direct us to do next.
Thank you, Mr. Lagerbloom. Councilman Hypes. I saw you move your hand. I just assumed you had a question.
Well, I did have an opportunity, as Mr. Lagerbloom said, to have a meeting with the hockey folks. And, I had the benefit of Councilman Dorito also being on that Zoom call, so I got the benefit of some of his interest and analysis while we were going through the discussion. I've not had the benefit of my other council members, what their concerns, if any, are, or what they perceive. But I thought I'd take a second to go through a few of the things that I was questioning for the benefit of my fellow council members. As of Thursday, there was no entity for the city to enter into an agreement with. There was a name reservation in the name of the Atlanta Hockey Club, but there is no entity, and of course, if we're going to move forward, we would have to know who that entity is and, work on what those terms look like if we're going to have a private entity operate, schedule, and maintain a taxpayer public facility. Once we know the entity, then I have questions about, given the dollar amounts that have been discussed, where that financing comes from in order to accomplish what they have set out to do on the timetable that they've set out to do it. These are things that were touched on. I'm not sure I have answers to any of these yet. At its highest level, I've got a couple of concerns that I think can be worked through, but nevertheless, as a representative of the people and the residents and the taxpayers of Alpharetta, if we're going to turn over this taxpayer facility to a private group to make money, I need to understand the revenue model. So I sat right here in July of last year advocating for more parking at Union Hill Park to maximize the facility for a music venue. And there were people who came in who said no. It was contemplated by a parks bond that there would be a playground out there and not more parking, and that we should be faithful to what the voters voted for in a bond referendum to make improvements to Union Hill Park, including the facility that's out there. And I think it goes without saying that there was no contemplation in the parks bond for the taxpayers to vote for and spend money on the bond for a hockey facility, a for-profit hockey facility at that. So the finances are of great interest to me. The revenue to be gained, how you gain your revenue, the expenses to be incurred, the corporate structure. There was discussion during our Zoom call about a for-profit entity and a non-profit entity, but the interplay between the two I'm unclear on, and I'm still not sure, other than one gentleman who I do believe is sitting here says, it's his job to get people on the ice at X number hundred of dollars per hour, and that's money coming in. There was discussion, and this is a point of concern for me, that has been analogized or touched on in other sports facilities in town, and that's how many Alpharetta residents are we turning over this facility to a private organization. And during our discussion, the terminology that was used was there is X percentage, and I forget the percentage, maybe approximately 50%, I believe is what was said, of residents from Alpharetta zip codes. And then we had a discussion that 30009 is mostly in Alpharetta, 30004 is a little bit in Alpharetta, mostly in Milton. 05 goes on up into Forsyth County and Shiloh, and 30022 is mostly Johns Creek, but partly in Alpharetta. So if you're pulling resident data from postal zip codes, I still need more information. If we're going to turn over a taxpayer facility, one that was improved with a bond project, to a private entity to serve 70% non-tax-paying residents, I need to factor that into my ultimate decision, because I don't know what my decision would be, if I had that information. But thus far, it's not been provided. We had a discussion about the variety of uses of the facility, and at one point, actually at 2 points it was said, and I wrote it down, that this group would be using the facility 360 days per year, 18 hours per day. That may be hyperbole, but that was what was told to me. That is total and complete hockey use of the facility, and when there's scheduling conflicts, I do have concerns about other interested groups having access to this facility. And I'm going to keep saying it. It is a taxpayer facility. So we've had uses out there apart from hockey for the Alpharetta Public Safety Foundation Chili Cook-Off. We've had Shamrocking for a Cure. We've had the Alpharetta Symphony. We have I Can Bike. We have 7 Home by Dark concerts scheduled. We have that as a rain location for Home by Dark Brook Street Park concerts. It's a rain location for the Rotary Concert Series at Brook Street Park. And those are decisions that get made on a Thursday afternoon where the band has to go out there and be set up on a Friday. Otherwise, the people who are relying on that facility when they've already booked the bands will be out some money, and that could be an issue. So the uses are obviously a topic for me, and scheduling is a topic. If we turn over this facility to a private group, will the city abdicate its responsibility to its taxpayers for scheduling and equal use of this facility, or will we abdicate and turn it over to this private group? Who's going to do the scheduling? When will the scheduling be done? How will it be done? If there's a conflict between a desired use by the hockey people and a use by a local group who would like to use this facility, who decides who wins on that conflict, especially if the hockey group is making that decision on a conflict? We had a discussion about the changeover from ice to non-ice. And again, talking about if a concert out here in the back has to be moved in less than 24 hours' notice. I think it happened at least once, maybe twice last summer. Based on the rain forecast on a Thursday, the phone call was made, no concert in Brook Street Park, go to Union Hill Park. Well, who is going to be responsible for that changeover? How long does that changeover take? I think the storage issues can probably be worked through. We had some discussion about that. In terms of items that may go into a contract if it gets to that point, how much is this group paying to the city? There is a flat per day rental fee that we charge everybody else. Are we charging that to this group? Has this group agreed to pay the per day? And if it is 360 days, are you prepared to pay 360 days times the per day rental of the facility? Because as I emphasized during our discussions, the city, if this goes forward, is the landlord, and whoever's using it is the tenant. And as such, do we treat you the same as we treat everybody else, including folks who are trying to raise money for a cause, such as Shamrocking for a Cure? Should they be charged money, but not a for-profit group? I don't know. If things don't get turned over in time to prevent damage to another party who has rights to it, say a concert series, do we have self-help remedy that we can put into the concert so that we can send out somebody from the Parks Department to turn that into a music facility with no risk of damage on our part? Termination provisions are going to be very important to me. On what time frame can this contract be terminated? What will the hockey people have to say if there is a termination after you've made an investment to upgrade this public facility? If we have the right to terminate, how will you all feel if we exercise that right to terminate? Whatever happens here, it's a permitted use if it happens, and it's not an entitlement. And I for one will share with what I've already shared to these fine folks. I don't think I've said anything yet that we didn't talk about on the phone. So none of what I'm saying should be a surprise to any of these fine folks that are sitting here. But when when the cooler and the owner of the cooler decided to change use of the cooler, this is a concern of mine, my fellow council members. You all know the emails you received. I don't have your inbox. I know the emails I received. And those emails were demanding and came with a great sense of entitlement. And as I told you all on the phone, I signed up to receive everybody's opinion, and whether it be diplomatic or coarse, it doesn't matter. I signed up for that position. But no matter how well intended, I get the right to decide if it's well received. And if you are the face of a group of people who believe that once you have possession of something, not possession, the right to use something, that you then possess it, and this will come to an, if this contract goes into effect, it will come to an end, then I will have a problem with that. I mean, that's just not the nature of whatever we're talking about here in terms of this is the city of Alpharetta's residents, taxpayers, park, and facility. And so I do have concern, fellow council members, that once this is granted, there will be a sense of, oh, you cannot send us to the curb. And I would not have had that feeling but for about 30 emails that drove that point home. With respect to Home by Dark, I had also talked to James Casto. I talked with James for 25 minutes tonight. James has concerns about the 6-inch lip where the ice is covered and how that will make his tables uneven when he places the tables. He's got concerns about how his tables will be against the sideboards. He has already 270 season ticket holders to sit at tables. His season ticket holders have followed him for decades. This is a commitment the city of Alpharetta has made to Home by Dark and to people who bought season tickets before you all showed up on our doorstep. I give great deference to the commitments that we as a city have previously made and to honor those commitments. So I have a question about when the ice is being frozen and the generators are running, how loud will that be and how much will that interfere with the sound system of Home by Dark, which is a quality event, or any other music event that's being held out there, including the Alpharetta Symphony. I also have concerns about this wanting to start right away. It's my understanding Mr. Casto has requested that if this goes forward, that there be no hockey until after the final show on October 4th. I would hope that could be worked out because that's a commitment we made based on the condition of the facility prior to the hockey folks coming along. I have concerns that if this goes forward, Home by Dark will find another venue. And we will not have Home by Dark at Union Hill in our city after that. I have concerns about that. And lastly, just as a one-off note, I have concerns about other people who would like to use that facility, including the weekend roller skaters who regularly use that facility. Anybody can say, how do I compare my projected use with this other person's existing use? And you can value your use higher than you value theirs. They can value their use higher than you value yours. But there's value there in the people who have been using it the way they've been using it because it's a city park. And they have open access to use it as a city park. So those were the things, is that, and Mr. Dorito can follow and say, no, I made all that stuff up, or we did in fact talk about all that stuff. Because my council members did not have an opportunity to sit in on our call, I wanted to share my concerns so that they had an opportunity to hear them as well as what you heard from me. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Heights, and your point is well taken. This is a work session. We're not taking a vote. We're not making a decision tonight. Because we are a governmental entity, the city of Alpharetta, The laws do not allow us to have conversations about what we want to do and what we don't want to do unless it's in public. So that's the joy of being in local government. You get to hear us have this discussion so we can work it out and give some direction, hopefully at the end of this work session, to Mr. Lagerbloom and the rest of our staff on what would be the likely outcome when we bring it forward for a decision. So that being said, Councilman Dorito.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Hypes, for outlining a lot of points in our meeting last week. I appreciate the members from the hockey club who invested a lot of time with us last week on many of these topics that Councilman Hypes raised. Had a lot of time to think about it since then. I know we left you with some questions of confirming the level of Alpharetta resident participation. I don't know if that number's been received yet, but it was portrayed about 50%, but as Councilman Hype said, is that within the actual zip codes of the city, or is it extending outward that's considered in Alpharetta zip codes that's not within city limits? So I still would love to hear that, because I think that's an important bit of information for the city council when we're considering the use of a city asset for the hockey club's use. Well, I thought about this since last week. First thing that comes to my mind is making sure we're taking care of the kids in this community with different types of sports opportunities. And if the level of citizen participation is what you portrayed to us last week, again, we want to get that confirmed. I do think it's worthy to continue dialogue on how we might be able to partner with the hockey club to see if this could be worked out. And as I was very transparent to the board members last week on the call, I know that there's kind of an urgency to move this forward, as alluded to by our city administrator earlier on tonight. I pointed out to you, I'm not really certain that the timeline works for the city to be able to do our due diligence properly and answer a lot of these open questions that Councilman Hypes pointed out, both in the call and this evening. And because that's the types of things, when we have clear answers, we'll go into the terms and conditions of any sort of agreement if the council sees fit to consider that and move forward on it. So the resident participation is important. And as I pointed out to the board, just to be for the public's benefit, I also wanted to make sure a lot of the, I think 283, if I remember correctly, is in the travel league, part of the hockey club. Want to make sure that there was equal access to becoming a member of the travel team, and I think you answered yes, that you would actually bring in Alpharetta young youth who want to get into the hockey program and be trained and all that stuff and work their way up through the program to access the travel league if that's what they choose to do in the future. So that's important to me as well. The other thing that's important to me is the name of the hockey club. I know when you spoke to us last week, you spoke about the Atlanta Hockey Club, and that was what you were registering as far as the entity's name within the Secretary of State's office. And I just want to put on the record here tonight with my fellow council members that I would love, if this goes forward, I'd love to have it called the Alpharetta Hockey Club, since it's our facility being utilized potentially, and I'd love to bolster up the access to Alpharetta residents who may become aware of this if this was to happen and want to, participate in that program. So here's the catch-22. If the timeline doesn't work, and I just heard from Councilman Heiss about Home by Dark, where they need access to the facility till this October, if I heard you right, John. October 4th. Yeah, so I don't know if that puts the kibosh on this from your perspective, because you have tryouts coming up and everything you've laid out as far as your schedule and the need to move on this quickly. And my biggest concern is, and I've said this to you, so I'm just repeating it for everyone to hear this, it's almost, I think it's impossible to move quickly on this, on your timeline. I know when we spoke last week in the call, it was discussed that the vote on this was going to be put on tonight's agenda. And I think Councilman Hypes and I said, well, if it's on the agenda, we'll discuss it, but if it isn't, we hope it wouldn't be, because we don't think we've had enough time to really flesh out all the questions and get the answers and make sure we're doing the right thing for the citizens of Alpharetta who invested hard-earned tax dollars in the bond that resulted in the way Union Hill Park is today. And as Councilman Hypes talked about, and I give him a lot of credit for working on the concert series. He put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's very successful for the city. And it provides some cultural arts to the city that we really need to continue bolstering up. When we talked about putting additional parking because of the success of that series, concert series, you know, it became clear to us that a lot of folks wanted to make sure we put the playground area and everything that was promised under the bond issuance when it went to the public for voters. So there's a lot of kind of issues here and considerations that we as a city council have to think about. And as much as I'd love to say to you, hey, let's help these kids that are here in moving this program forward, I would hope that that's our goal to get there. I just think the timeline might not be within the timeline that's required for you guys to sustain this program and maybe do something quicker. And the other thing I'll say is what interests me about this, not only make sure that we're doing the right by the citizens of Alpharetta, but you know, we've been talking about bringing an NHL team to Alpharetta. And it's almost like crazy that we wouldn't try to bring a hockey program here, whether it be through this means or another option in the future, whatever, where we hopefully would become a hockey city. And that's what, you know, that would demonstrate some commitment to the NHL of how interested we are in bringing a team here. So I think time is of the essence on the hockey club's part. I get that, but if we can figure out a timeline that works for the city as well, so we can complete our due diligence, I think we have a lot of questions that need to be answered before I think the council is in a position to even consider whether we support something like this or not. So that's just my opinion tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I also got to meet with these gentlemen last week via Zoom, Teams, or whatever we wound up with at the end. I appreciate that. I thought it was a great conversation. Many of what Councilman Hypes and Councilman DeRito have mentioned as concerns, we also talked about concerns. It is important that we do get an accurate count of in the city. I didn't bring it up in our meeting because we were flowing good, and I didn't want to just say, oh, by the way, you realize that Alpharetta is not necessarily one or two zip codes, or it's not all five. There's a famous Mercedes-Benz dealership called Alpharetta Mercedes-Benz of Alpharetta. Is not even in Alpharetta. RBM Alpharetta. They just love the name. So that's, again, going to be a strong part of helping make this decision is the actual in the city limits participation. I think from when we talked, October 4th would be a deal killer, but I want you guys to circle back later and address his needs. We're not doing that tonight. This is not a two-way. This is up and down the dais. So it is coming fast. I understand the urgency. So I would like to leave here tonight with Mr. Lagerblum having an understanding of what these questions are and how do we get answers to them, and as fast as we can get answers back that are acceptable, we can move forward fast if we need to, but we're going to need all the information fast. So the key of that is great. I'm not hung up too much on Alpharetta right now because I don't know where these guys are going to wind up. If this move isn't the right move for you and you incorporate under that and you find another metro part of the city, but if you do decide to stay here, I'd piggyback that. So there's some work to be done, and the puck is in your end of the ice. How about that?
Councilman Mitchell.
It's hard to follow that joke. I'd like to ask Chris a question before I. Chris, a Home by Dark concert, the plan is to put the tables on top of the ice, is that correct?
Yeah, the plan, like if this concept were to go forward, the conversion would happen with a couple things happening. One is the doors would be raised so that the amount of open space was back to open space for the concert that created the feel of the venue. There would be a rubber material, really no different than what you've seen maybe if you've gone to places that play basketball and hockey at the same time or have concerts. It's a thick rubber that covers it and just keeps it from impacting the other uses that are non-ice sports uses. We talked about the idea of there being noise associated with generators or power and things that run. When we were on the phone with James Casto, the solution with that was that for the period of the time that the concert was occurring, it'd just be turned off so that there was no impact to the concert itself. So a lot of the things that, and I didn't interrupt, and I'm not going to interrupt, but a lot of the things that were talked about in the first three people that have commented were all things that we had been conscious of and had raised as part of the discussion. I do want to focus in on one thing that I do believe they've made a decision to change, if this were to go forward, to change the name to Alpharetta Ice Sports, which is a different thing than the Alpharetta Hockey, but that's because there's also figure skating. There's stuff that would happen on the ice that are not hockey. And so if you put yourself into a corner of it being Alpharetta Hockey something, it would be more representative of what they were doing if it was called Alpharetta Ice Sports. So those are maybe a couple answers, but the thought was that it would convert back for the Home by Dark concerts and would have a material that was rollable for things to roll across it, that it was stable for things to be put on. All of those concerns I thought were raised and resolved. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, I've got one more in relation to that. The October 5th date or 4th date, how will the kids, if we meet that and that's a James Castro request, that doesn't mean we have to abide by that. But
that's the first time I've heard that is tonight during this conversation.
Okay, so if that's something that he's requesting, it's just a request, but an important request, but how will the kids practice and things like that if they're?
I think our discussion's done. If the decision is to honor October, I'm just being as honest as I can be with you. Mm-hmm. That if that is a requirement, we could of course turn to them, or I could turn to them tomorrow to ask the question, but I don't, if that is a requirement of moving forward, this is probably a real quick conversation.
I just don't understand. I'm trying to understand the logic of if tables can be placed out there and concerts can still be had without the generators noise, why is that even an issue? Because you can't get ready for a fall tournaments and not practice on the ice from now to fall or whenever, if we approve this, whenever it would start. So I'm trying to understand why that's
I don't know their business because I honestly don't even know what constitutes icing call in hockey, but maybe I'll learn one of these days. But I believe, just having had many conversations with them, that there are certain places they play, certain teams they play, teams that play them, that to push something as late as an October 4th start would not match the rest of the hockey competitors in the Metro Atlanta area.
I wouldn't think so.
I honestly, if we want to honor that, I think this conversation speeds up a good bit. So thank you for that.
Okay, so for my input, a lot of great questions and comments were raised. I'm glad the Alpharetta naming of it was important to me as well. I would like to know how many citizens are actually affected by it, and I would like to hear that there would be an outreach to Alpharetta youth, that you would start a program, because if we're trying to attract the NHL, excuse me, or NFL, which I'm the least athletic person up here. I'll go, obviously, right? But I think it would be a feather in our cap to already have this program in place and to be trying to train up youth into hockey in our area. And I know that if we have a stadium that won't just draw people from Alpharetta, we'll have people from all over the Atlanta region who are interested in professional hockey and who want to be involved in hockey. And I can't go to my chiropractor without saying, have y'all got that hockey venue yet? And, you know, he's from up north, and a lot of folks have moved down from up north, and they love it and want it here. So I'm interested in finding a way to move forward with this based on the conversations being resolved that have been raised, and but I would like to see us pursue it. So, thank you.
Councilman Brady? It's a workshop, man. Everybody's got to speak. I don't know where you're at.
No, I think a lot of the comments for Councilman Hypes really, but all the questions really hit everything. I wanted to kind of reiterate that, but there's a lot of great things that can happen in the community when it comes together. And you see a group like this that really wants to find a new home. It's kind of great to see that. And it's great that we're able to kind of entertain this and kind of have the opportunity to put it in this kind of forum. But when you look at this with the complexities it has, I kind of feel like we're looking at a blank document with a lot of just blanks all over it that we just don't know all the answers to kind of put together. At least that's the way I kind of feel. You know, a lot of those can have fiscal responsibilities to it. You're talking about financing and those kind of things. You know, what happens if it's not paid or it's collateral, things get removed, and what happens with the city, you know, if there's are we talking about a financial commitment? What does that look like? Those are things we plan very well, you know, for a long kind of period of time. We want to know what they are and what that windshield in the future looks like. From a sharing capacity, I really go into, you know, the use of it. Is it shared between other groups, and really fall hard on our commitments that we have there of, you know, it's hard for us to break any commitment we have. It's hard for us to take a facility and say that it's used for only one group and not shared for the broader community. And that would be a real difficult thing to say if it's a single-use facility versus, you know, what is the full programming? Are we able to put something together there that programming works for several different groups, for several different times and dates and all those kind of things. So I think it's just a lot of questions to be answered, kind of goes back to, it just takes a lot to get there. But thanks for the opportunity to bring this in this forum.
Councilman Will?
All right, I'll round this one out for you guys. I met with the group. I love the idea, the opportunity. I think it's awesome. My concern in our meeting, and if you'll recall, was that my understanding is you need to raise $2 million to make this thing go forward. And the commitments can't be there until a decision's from council, and this decision has to be made in the next 2 weeks. So my concern is, are we going to be able to get the funding fast enough based on the fact that there is a tremendous amount of work that's going to have to be done with the city to satisfy all the issues that have been brought up here tonight? Because if we can't get the funding in that period of time, then we're about to go through a whole heck of a lot of work that isn't going to get us anywhere. So that's my only issue. Otherwise, I think it's a great idea, subject to what we've heard here today. So,
Councilman Drita.
Thank you, Mayor. That's the first I heard about the $2 million. I thought it was like $300,000, what I heard on our call last week, that they would put into the improvements to be able to convert it back and forth when needed. But
if I can clarify, if I could just clarify what they were talking about with that investment, was the additional investment they were going to make to have the components of the project make it so that the concert series could happen. So it has always been about a $2 million investment need for all of the modifications and the rink itself and the equipment that operates that. What was referenced with the 350s, when I went back and said a closed facility is a deal killer for the concerts, they had to add to obviously get the roll-up doors as an option.
Okay. I think what this comes down to is, I think the hockey club needs to present us with a proposal that addresses all these questions, that addresses the terms and conditions of how this relationship would work, who controls the scheduling, from their perspective, whatever their proposal would be. I'm not telling them how to put a proposal together, but we need some concrete evidence of exactly how they see this relationship working. Homes by Dock, I think, is an exempt organization, right? I don't think they're a for-profit. So we already let a not-for-profit utilize the facility. It is an underutilized facility. But I would love in the agreement, if we have one, that it has some flexibility for the city to control scheduling there in case we want to utilize it for other things. I think if there's some sort of public component to it where the public in Alpharetta could utilize the ice space outside of the programs, I think that would be intriguing for us to have kind of that unique ice skating rink. I know we have the Avalon thing at holiday time, but it seems to be pretty popular. Basically what I'm saying is it's help us help you. I mean, you know all the concerns, you know all the potential barriers. I'd like to see an actual, now that you have all this input and feedback, a proposal. And the sooner you can do that, the faster, as Mayor Pro Tem said, we could probably move the ball forward a little bit quicker, or I should say the puck forward, right? I think we have interest. It's a unique opportunity for the city. I'd like to flesh it out and see if we can make it happen.
Director Rogers, I just wanted to check, is Mr. Casto's Home by Dark a nonprofit?
No, he has a nonprofit portion of his business.
Okay, I didn't think it was a nonprofit entity altogether, so I just wanted to clarify that. Any other questions or comments? So the easy thing for anybody to do would have been able to tell y'all no. It's a difficult position that all of us and all of our staff have been put in. It's through none of our efforts or no decisions we made. And so we're in a really tough spot here. And so what I'm sharing with you now is it's more important for us to get this decision right than to get it done right away. And I know there's urgency on your part. We didn't create that. And it's more important for us to get this right than to get it done right now. So I'm not hearing that there's a hard no from anybody on this dais, but we're going to have to live with this. And if y'all are making that kind of investment, you're going to want commitments. And we want to make sure that that's not going to go south. Because if it goes south, whether it's beyond anyone's control or whatever, we're going to hear about it. And we should, because we need to be thoughtful about what we're doing here. This is a facility that already had commitments. We've invested in it a lot. It had a lot of momentum going. And I hope you can appreciate the fact that I think a lot of governments would have just told you to go away. And I'm very proud of our organization, specifically Mr. Lagerbloom and our council members who've taken their time to find out about this. I think we'd like to be able to do what you want us to do. I don't know that what you're asking is possible, given some of the parameters that were discussed here. I don't know about the 360 days and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's still an opening for us to get enough information to perhaps be able to make something a win-win. But I'm not hearing that we have enough of that clarified, because I can't see us signing a contract until we get these answers, and get these questions answered. So my instruction, unless anybody has any objections, is to once again ask Mr. Lagerbloom and Director Rogers and any of the council members who want to be involved in these sessions or conditions and conversations. Councilman Heights brought up some things I had not heard and considered before. So I don't know what your drop-dead deadline is, but to me, if you can be flexible and wait until we can get what we need to make an informed decision, then we're still working on trying to get it done. But otherwise, if you choose to pull the plug, I certainly understand, but we just can't move forward with the information we've got at this point. Is that fair enough, Mr. Lagerbloom?
Yeah, so what I'll take away from as direction is honestly, I think it becomes a very honest discussion tomorrow with, or even later tonight with the group that's here to see what flexibility those deadlines may have in them. If the answer is they don't have any flexibility, then really the rest of the notes I've taken don't matter. So I think this is going to become a timeline discussion first and foremost, and I will have that discussion, and I'll bring you back with some feedback as to what those deadlines are, and if they are hard and fast, I'll bring that back to you as well. I do want to say, and they're sitting here, and I'll say that I've appreciated the candor with which this group and the amount of time with which this group has come forward to the city. Those conversations usually stop really quickly, in my experience, early on. And in fact, this one continued because of the candor of a couple of the gentlemen that I met with on a regular basis, just trying to extract some of this information. And so, you know, depending on where this ends up and how it goes, I just want to put upon this record and say to you all that, you know, if we could find an opportunity and find a way to do it with a group, this group has been very, very easy to deal with and has met any of the things that we've thrown at them with some speed and diligence. So I do want to put that on the record since there's not going to be a back and forth discussion with them tonight. And I will, I'll have that discussion with them later tonight or in the morning, and I'll bring you back some feedback as to where we are.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
So that'll draw the work session to a close on Union Hill Park and high sports, including hockey. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of several items, first being City Council Planning Retreat Day number 1 minute for the meeting of January 17th, 2025. The City Council Planning Retreat Day 2 minutes, meeting of January 18th, 2025. The City Council meeting minutes for the meeting of March 24th, 2025. Private development and permanent access easement agreements, the Maxwell, quitclaim deed and permanent easement, 2580 West Side Parkway. The financial management report for the month ending of February 28th, 2025. And is there anything that anyone on council would like to remove from the consent agenda? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not for the consent agenda, sir.
However, if anyone wants to comment on the consent agenda, now is your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously, so we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. First public hearing item is the ordinance for the city code text amendments, massage and spa establishments. This is the first reading. And I believe our city attorney, Molly Eswine, will read the ordinance aloud.
An ordinance by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, amending Article 9 of Chapter 10 of the Code of the City of Alpharetta to amend regulations regarding massage establishments and spa establishments to repeal conflicting ordinances and for other purposes. Mayor, this is actually, I believe, my item for presentation as well. So you all heard this in a workshop earlier in the year, and ultimately we are cleaning up the ordinance in a few places. None of the provisions that we added or amended with the work session have changed, with the exception of one change, which is fairly minor. We actually went to state law because there's state laws governing massage and spa establishments, what massage or massage therapy means, and it interacts with our ordinance. For instance, we don't require a massage therapist to come in and actually get a license from the city. And so to ensure that we are consistent with state law, I did update that definition, which just gets tweaked over the years. So it was modeled after state law's ordinance, or state law originally, that definition, and so we're just updating that. Otherwise, the changes to the code are to provide for fingerprinting for the applicants that come in for a massage and spa establishment license, and to provide for certain conduct for applicants that come in to apply that we were tightening up in the ordinance.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Eswine? Councilman Hypes.
Yeah, and this is a follow-up with the city administrator. Is this a wholesale replacement of all the language to our prior code on this? I'm still a little bit confused from our prior discussion.
Of course. So the ordinance is referenced as repealing and replacing the code, but what's provided as the substantive language is what's actually being replaced. So if you would like me to provide in the adopting ordinance, rather than it's repealing and replacing it with Exhibit A, to say that it's making the amendments as shown in red line, highlighted in red, we could absolutely do that.
Yeah, I would very much.
Okay, yeah, the only
If it
reason
was
I
a
do that.
wholesale replacement and none of the language tracked the existing ordinance, then I would say no. But if it tracks and there's changes, yes, I would very, very much always like a red line version.
Oh, I thought the red line version was what you had as your backup. That's what I had provided, so I didn't realize that what y'all had was not in red line.
No.
Okay, I understand, and I apologize. I'll make sure to send that to you all and update the backup for the next meeting. What I had was red line, so I think, sometimes Microsoft Word will incorporate the changes and just leave a little line. I think that must be what happened, and I apologize for that. But it is absolutely only the text changes that are going to be redlined in what I send you.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Any other questions for Ms. Eswine? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on the revision of the massage establishment code, now's your opportunity to come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion this evening for the city code text amendment, massage and spa establishments, consideration of adoption of the ordinance to modify Chapter 10, Article 9 of the Code of the City of Alpharetta to require enhanced identification, fingerprint background checks, to provide for additional requirements for applicants for licensing and permitting, to provide for renewal applications, to amend regulations, to authorize a denial of a license or permit, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes in the red-lined version that you will bring to the second reading.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, second by Councilman Will. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as outlined in Mayor Pro Tem's motion, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So we'll move on to the ordinance for the City Code text amendments. Recreation Commission, first reading, Ms. Eswine.
Thank you. An ordinance by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, amending Article 3 of Chapter 2 and Article 2 of Chapter 32 of the Code of the City of Alpharetta to replace the current Recreation Commission with a Recreation Board. And so this is the first reading, and we've not had a work session on this, so I'll sum up. The impetus for this is that the code currently provides for a Recreation Commission, which is something that's authorized under state law. And the way that our Recreation Commission operates is really more as an advisory board. I think you are all pretty familiar with that. They'll review park rules and make recommendations to the City Council, and they interact closely with Morgan and his team. But unlike a Recreation Commission as could be in existence under state law, our Recreation Commission was, we talked about the Parks Bond a little bit tonight. They weren't involved with the Parks Bond. They don't have any debt. They don't hold any property. They are not that type of Recreation Commission. They really act in more of an advisory capacity rather than that managing system that is contemplated in state law. And so these changes really are intended to make the ordinance reflect how our rec board is operating in reality, and to make clear that they are recommending, they're a recommending body, similar to, say, the Planning Commission is a recommending body. That is one of the portions of the changes to the ordinance, and it is a full, strict repeal and replace as to the Recreation Commission section of the code, though I realize that y'all probably don't have a red line of that one either if it incorporated the changes from massage. The other aspect of this is in Article 3 of Chapter 2, which is your general boards and commissions section of the code, and that's just, frankly, it's just cleanup. So there are two definitions, one for city boards and one for state-enabled boards, and we are simply updating that with the current list of boards that you have, and also moving the Recreation Commission from a state-enabled board to a city board. So with respect to the Recreation Board, the provisions that are included are all fairly standard. It contemplates that the number of members is going to stay the same, so it's going to be 9 as opposed to 7 with 2 alternates, which would be a deviation from a typical city board situation. But if you want to change that direction, then I can happily make that change as directed by you. But we were trying to keep it as consistent and similar to its current composition as possible. The terms would be for 5 years, but again, the same members will stay in place on the rec board from the Recreation Commission. And it otherwise provides, for open meetings, for the board having the ability to recommend bylaws in your charter. Actually, the city council is the one that would have to adopt bylaws for any of its city boards. But it's just typical things like that. And then the duties and responsibilities are outlined under Section 3233, consistent with our understanding of how the rec board is currently operating, acting in an advisory capacity, analyzing matters that relate to recreation and parks in the city that would be referred to them by the recreation director, things like that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Mitchell.
So historically, because it was a state board, we've kind of nominated folks and then voted on it as a whole. Will that change now to be like an appointed position from each council person?
So we actually drafted it to be that their appointment is by a majority vote by the city council.
And I guess I'm not understanding, if it's like any other recommending board, like design review board.
I think I understand what you're saying. If you want it to be that each of you gets an appointment to be approved by the full council, we could certainly do that. But since there are 9 members, I think that maybe the mayor would get 2 or would get 3, and the rest of you could get 1 if you were wanting to each have an individual appointment. But since there are 9 members on the commission currently, a 1-for-1 wouldn't result in the same number.
Right. I guess I've never understood why it wasn't handled the same way. Because of the state, I get it, but now that we're moving forward, why would we not have a person that is involved with sports or whatever athletics that we would recommend like we do with any other recommending board? Why would we not handle it like any other commission that it's
You want to cut it down to 7?
We could either cut it down to 7, or I'd be fine to give the mayor the other 3 appointments, or however, so that we can keep the composition the same, but it just seems kind of odd.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were asking, because
Yeah.
I wasn't quite clear on that. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, in effect, that's keeping it pretty much status quo.
So what I'm hearing would be each of you would get an appointment, except that the mayor would get 3, so you would still have a 9-member board.
I'm fine with it. Unless
Director Rogers, do
everybody
you-
gets 1 and 2 at large.
The other, mayor and council, for some of the other city boards that we have 7 appointments, 1 by each of the mayor and city council, and then we have 2 alternates that are selected at large by the entire board. That could be another alternative, just discussing kind of the makeup of some of the other boards and commissions. Currently, I think as we've applied it, it's been technically all of them the appointments are made verbally by the mayor. 3 of them were for the mayor. The other were for, at the request of a council member. So.
Director Rogers, if you don't mind, try to give us some insight as far as your thoughts on how this would impact. I don't know that it would, but I know we used to assign like one person as a liaison to a different park program or a rec program or something like that. So I just want to make sure we're not arbitrarily making it more difficult for you and the Rec Commission?
No, I think the first thing that I think about is you reduce it to 7, is 2 people are going to have to step down immediately. But because we are, and it's an advisory group, and we do have so many different activities and so many different venues, it's not like just athletics versus recreation. I mean, when you throw in all the activities, I think the larger group would make sense for us, so that we would just have more input and have more representation from throughout our recreation and parks community. That's what would make sense to me.
Are we fine with that? I mean, basically, at least when I was the liaison to Parks and Rec, we didn't have alternates because if somebody couldn't be there, everybody else just filled them in later or something like that, because you do have those 2 members. But does that give you clarity?
I believe so. So for the 2 additional, would you want to vote on them as a whole, or are we looking at the mayor getting the extra appointments?
I'm fine either way, but it's really tough voting on appointees.
I understand that completely. Okay.
Because that means you're telling somebody you don't want them.
That's fine. And the mayor getting 3 is consistent with what Lauren just described has been the current practice. And frankly, Lauren and I went back and forth on that when this was getting prepared for this agenda. So I will make that change and make sure to bring it back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, 2 quick questions, Mayor.
Councilman DeRito.
Molly, on section 32-31, terms of office, should we make that 4 years in line with our positions on the council? Would make sense, right?
Yes, that makes sense. Again, I was just keeping it how they had been.
Should we put it at the pleasure of the council appointments or the mayor appointment, like meaning it's 4-year terms, but if for some reason we want to change them, we'll have that ability to do that, right? And then under D, under the same section, talks about if there's a vacancy, the council can, should we put the majority council for an expired term to replace someone leaving in the middle of their appointment or something? Or is it just at the, should that be changed at the pleasure of the member that appointed them to replace them? It's just not right language for what we're trying to do.
For what y'all are proposing. And I'll be sure to reconcile the
Okay.
change to the composition and appointment that we've just discussed for the filling of vacancies. I think that it would be, based on what y'all have just directed, that if, say, your appointee left early, then you would just make your replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not for this item, sir.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this item, now is your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council adopt an ordinance to modify Chapter 2, Article 3, and Chapter 32, Article 2 of the Code of City of Alpharetta regarding creation powers, duties, and obligations of the Recreation Commission to repeal conflicting ordinances and for other purposes, with the city attorney incorporating the changes discussed and agreed upon by council here today.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Heitz, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve as outlined in Councilman Heitz's motion, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. We'll move on to new business, and first item under new business is the 2025-2026 Citywide Employee Health and Related Benefits. Director Harris, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I get into details, first wanted to thank each of you for this.
Director Harris, can you please turn your mic on?
Do we have to turn it up?
Oh, he's thanking us.
Yes. I want to get this on the record.
Well, as I was saying, I want to thank you for the great benefit package, on behalf of all the employees that you offer here at the city and allow us for our medical and dental and all that benefits, and you allow us to bring to our families as well. So we do appreciate that. And with that in mind, we do try to make sure we're as competitive as we can be each and every year. Obviously, medical claims tend to average about a 7% trend rate. We feel good that the last 5-year average for the city of Alpharetta has been 3.7%. This year, when we had Aetna and Anthem and United Healthcare compete against Cigna, they weren't able to meet Cigna's renewal of 3.6%. So again, that's what's before you here. And as far as vision and IMED, 0% increase. New York Life on our disability is a 0% increase as well. So I think it's a good plan and a good package. But again, thank you for what you offer us here at the city.
Any questions? Director Harris, I just wanted to thank you and your staff. I recall 12 years ago when the economy wasn't doing well, and there were times when our employees were actually bringing home less, not because their salaries didn't go up, their salaries went up, but the healthcare costs went higher than their raises, and that was heartbreaking. It was for all of us, I mean, but it was tough to see, and I know how hard you and your staff have worked to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and I'm grateful for that. That being said, Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not for this item, sir.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Yes. Would you like to make a motion?
No, I see somebody would.
Councilman
Mr.
Brady
Mayor,
down there. I forget he's back from vacation now.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 citywide employee health and related benefits, to award the contracts for certain employee health and related benefits for plan year 2025 to 2026, city's group medical and dental coverage to Cigna, vision coverage to IMED, iLife and disability coverage to New York Life, and wellness services to Engagement Health Group, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
I have a motion by Councilman Brady, a second by Councilman Will. Now any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Next item up, Resolution 2025 Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan. Ms. Eswine, please read the resolution.
A resolution by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, adopting the City of Alpharetta 2025 Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Randall, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So this next item for your review and approval is the updated city ADA transition plan. So the ADA consists of 5 titles, and that outlines protections for individuals with disabilities. This one is specifically, the Title II, pertains to services provided by public entities and requires the city to frequently conduct a self-evaluation of services and facilities on the public property and within the public property right-of-way, to develop a plan outline methods to ensure that all of the services are accessible to individuals with disability. While this project is coordinated by the HR staff, thanks to Zimri Prentice, the majority of the work is done by experts in the Fire Marshal's office and within the Public Works Department, since this requires an assessment of the city properties. And all municipalities that receive federal fundings that are administered by the GDOT are required to update every 3 years their transition plan and submit that plan to GDOT so we can continue to receive and be eligible for the funds. And 2025 is
Would you explain what GDOT is to the people here?
Georgia Department of Transportation. I apologize.
Thank you. So all the road projects.
Yes, I apologize. And to continue receiving those, to be eligible for those funds that are administered by the Georgia Department of Transportation, we have to submit an updated transition plan every 3 years. So 2025 is the day that we update it, and we collaborated with Public Safety, Fire Marshal's Office, and Public Works to have that plan available for your review and approval. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Randall? Thank you. We appreciate what you're doing.
And we have no public comment cards for this item, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone wants to come forward and speak on the item, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2025 Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan, as noted by Human Resources, Chris Randall.
I have a motion by Councilman Brady, a second by Councilman Hypes. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. We'll move on to the next item, which is the fiscal year 2025 Task Order 2. On-call stormwater construction services. Director Sasevich, you have the floor. You ran them off, man.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is Task Order 2 for our stormwater on-call vendor, CSTE. Within your packet, there's a list of tasks that we're working on, consisting of relocating a head wall, raising junction boxes, fixing multiple catch basins throughout the city, and pouring in place a 72-inch head wall on Morrison Parkway. We are matching our on-call contracts, so we went through the prices for all the vendors that submitted, and CSTE is still the lowest at $500,232.98. So it's just another task order to the RJ contract that's been approved.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for Mr. Sasevich? Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Ms. Shapiro?
We have no public comment cards for this item, sir.
However, if anyone would like to come forward, now is your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor, I move to approve Task Order 2 funds in the amount not to exceed $500,232.98 to CSTE, Inc. for stormwater construction services throughout the city pursuant to the August 12, 2024 on-call stormwater construction services contract by and between CSTE, Inc. and the City of Alpharetta, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Dorito and a second by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
You're quite welcome, sir. Next item up is the service agreement, Keep America Beautiful Grant Project. Ms. Shapiro.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So for this item, this is approval of a contract between the city and the National Keep America Beautiful organization. Every year, our Natural Resources Commission and their staff liaison, Terry Porter and David Shostak, they work to earn the city's Keep America Beautiful designation every year. And their organization identified a local small grant of $10,000 for us to do an improvement project somewhere within the city. So Public Works, working with our Recreation and Parks Division, identified a small area on the Alpha Loop, kind of in the new section near Northwinds Parkway, behind the Village Tavern area, for them to do a community planning day in partnership with one of our largest employers in Alpharetta, ADP. So ADP, with our Natural Resources Commission and a few folks from staff, will have the opportunity to not only plant some native plants and trees in that section of the Alpha Loop, but also receive a $10,000 grant from Keep America Beautiful for that project. So it's a way for people who work and live in Alpharetta to give back to a new, neat section of the Alpha Loop and plant trees. The idea of that being on Earth Day as the planting day, I think Earth Day, right? Yeah, I think so. And if this contract is approved, which we've worked with their legal team and our legal team, it just basically explains the terms of how we would be reimbursed and what the funds could be used for. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions from council? Thank you, Ms. Shapiro.
And we have no public comment cards on this item.
However, if you'd like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Move to approve a service agreement between the City of Alpharetta and Keep America Beautiful volunteer planning event along the Alpha Loop and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
I have a motion by Councilman Dorito and a second by Councilman Hypes. Any discussion, gentlemen? All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. So the next item up will be the resolution to condemn parcel 1 of Cummings Street Corridor Improvement Project. Ms. Eswine, would you please read the resolution and present this item?
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta authorizing the city attorney to exercise the city's powers of eminent domain to acquire certain interests in property situated in the city of Alpharetta, Georgia for public purposes, including public transportation purposes. So this particular parcel, which we refer to as Parcel 1, is located at 145 Cummings Street. The parcel owner is Jill Bernard, and the just and adequate compensation would be paid into the court, which would be $15,400. The take in this case is 0.02 acres of right-of-way, as well as 1,593.86 square feet for a temporary construction easement.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Eswine? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do, Mr. Mayor. The speaker for this one is Jill Bernard. If you'd like to come forward.
Good evening. I'm Jill Bernard at 145 Cummings Street. So we're talking about my parcel today. I have some handouts. Am I allowed to do that? Thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing me to speak this evening. First of all, I just want to let you know that I am very much in favor of the sidewalk that's going in on my side of Cummings Street. So I don't have an issue with that. I really do want that to happen. However, I do want fair compensation on that. I have talked to, I think it's Mr., I don't know, I'm going to butcher his last name, so Arash. And so I had talked to him, and he gave me the comps and what they had were counting towards the value of it. When I received the comps on there, and that's on the first page that you see there, 2 of the comps on there are 2 years old. I know that when they pulled the comps, this was back in September of '24, but these comps were from March and April of '23. So I updated the comps. I'm a realtor. I went online. I looked at the comps. I updated them. And if you go back several pages, the first Excel spreadsheet showed what my initial counter was on that. He had taken a look at it. It was beyond his ability. The amount difference was beyond his ability to make any kind of changes. So I had to go to the city attorney. So I went to the city attorney, and I was told what was given was fair market value. So with that, I actually ended up hiring an appraiser, and that will be behind the second Excel spreadsheet of the appraisal for the property. So the property in itself is worth $21,618, not including any of the landscaping that they're taking out that I should be reimbursed for, which includes a underground sprinkler system. It's a drip line. And so with that, the second Excel spreadsheet shows the difference on there, which was actually an increase of what I had initially offered to the city. Every time I talked to the city, they always said that it's fair market value, we'll condemn the land. We don't, I don't want to go to court, I don't want to take the city to court, but a $15,000 difference, actually a little bit more than that, that's a big difference. Because I do have a mortgage on my house, to release that section of land from my mortgage I'm going to have to pay the mortgage company what they appraise the value of it. It's going to be more than the $15,000 that the city's going to offer me. So that means to put the sidewalk in, I'm going to have to pay money out of pocket to get that there. I think that's unfair. I would prefer not to have it condemned and work something out with the city. I don't know if somebody's here to be able to do that, but I would prefer to do that than go to the court. But I will, if it's necessary.
Thank you very much.
We have no other comment cards for this item, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Shapiro. If there's anyone else that would like to come forward and speak, now's your opportunity to do so. Does any council member have any questions? Mr. Lagerblum, would you like to speak to this?
I guess I could, or I could defer to the city attorney to speak. I mean, there's certain things that you all can do, and there's...
So I will say that I don't have the benefit of seeing quite what she gave you, but I do know that our appraiser evaluated her figures and disagreed with them. So we use Greg Malcolm. He's the one who would have provided the appraisal that is the basis for the amount that would be paid into the registry of the court. I myself didn't handle those negotiations, but I do know that that information has been exchanged, and the city's appraiser disagreed with the assessment. So, you know, in speaking with Director Sisevich, I believe we have some flexibility. If the council wanted to wait, I'll defer to him to weigh in on that in front of you to make sure. But if you wanted us to look into this a little bit closer, theoretically we could if you had specific questions. But we don't bring condemnations to you lightly. And based on the discrepancy in the amounts as well as our consultation with our appraiser, it was deemed in the city's best interest to go ahead and take it to condemnation. At that point, that's when, you know, as you all are aware, we would go through discovery. She would challenge the condemnation. We would still take the property, but we would be able to basically look at the figures, get more information, and work through it that way.
Councilman Hypes?
Ms. Eswine, when determining value and locking in on that value, as of what date?
As of what date? I don't have the appraisal in front of me, so I don't know.
No, I understand that the appraisal has a date, but in terms of when money will be paid into court and delivered to the condemnee, would it be at the time of the taking, or could we do an appraisal 2 years ago and say that's the appraisal?
No. So we do a standard appraisal. If an appraisal is over a year old, I believe we update it. And so even when we have been in negotiations with someone, and you all have seen this, we will get an updated appraisal and bring the updated amount to you. But right now, our appraisal would not be would not be near that old.
Well, are we having a discussion now?
Right now, I think if we have questions, we want clarity. I think
Okay, she's answered my question.
all of us want to find the right answer.
Yeah,
We want to make sure we get it right.
I don't want to run afoul of making a comment, but to that point, you know, I just saw an East of Main house on Academy Street, 2,300 square feet, hit the market for $1.4 million. It's in red on Zillow right now. And I'm going to venture a guess, 6 months ago, it was $1.2 million, et cetera, et cetera. This is an August 24 appraisal, and the condemnee has a February 25 appraisal. So, you know, my question again is, as of what date in a rapidly appreciating market should one decide what the appraisal is, especially if somebody's contesting it? That's all.
Again, so when we get these projects, we get them appraised, and we work within the time frame that we have. So if we think that the market has changed significantly such that, and based on the timing of getting it to a condemnation status and taking it to court, we will update the appraisal. I don't have any information beyond that at this point, so.
Councilman Will?
Should we take into account, and I hear her plea that the mortgage company is going to appraise this differently and she has to come out of pocket, and I don't really think that's fair. should we take the mortgage company's appraisal into account when we negotiate this?
I think that that's what Director Sisevich can weigh in on this more, but the appraisal that she had done, we provided to our consultant, to our appraiser to consider, and he rejected
I guess I'm more interested in the mortgage company's appraisal. Is it different than ours and different than hers?
I haven't seen the mortgage company's appraisal,
I think
so I
that's
don't know.
something valid to look at.
That's not information.
Director Sisevich, could you come provide whatever clarity you may be able to?
So specifically, we get the appraisal, we hire our appraisal, they gave us one. That's how the Public Works then makes an offer to the property owner based off of that original appraisal. That's when the negotiations start. We received a counteroffer that far exceeded our ability to approve. So that's when then we pass it over to the attorneys, and then the communication starts between the attorneys and the property owner. And in this particular case, Ms. Bernard provided her appraisal information to our appraiser, and he then stated that he was not in agreement with that. We can easily get another appraisal, I should say, or appraiser. It just takes additional more time. We have a couple more parcels to get. We're in the final stages of closing out all of the Cumming Street parcels. We will not go out to bid until we feel comfortable that we got the properties secured within reason. So we can delay the project a little bit if need be. As I said, we got a couple more parcels to get, but we're in the home stretch of the whole entire corridor.
Right. Okay.
So.
Did the appraiser say why he felt differently about the appraisal?
Not to me, no, he did not.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Mitchell.
When did you go back and reapproach the appraiser? Has that been more recent?
So I have not talked to the appraiser in the last several months. As soon as there was a difference of double, the conversation's always been between our attorneys and the property owner.
And then at that point, it was taken to our appraiser?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dorito.
Okay.
Can I?
Councilman Brady.
Yeah, just for clarity, what exactly is the process? And I know there's a lot of condemnations going on. I was part of one going up at 2.4 acres up and down Georgia 400. What I do understand about condemnations, part of that 99.9% win in condemnations for the benefit of the public, right, for transportation. But the question is the value of the property, right? And you have appraisers that go in, they look at it. But I think there's a certain process. It has to be fair for everybody, so everyone's judged kind of the same way in the same level playing field. So I just want us to all know what the process is. I think you're right. We could take time to do something like that, but just all aware of what the process is.
Of course. So before we bring a condemnation, we have to abide by the landowner's Bill of Rights, and that entails providing notice and negotiations that I think you are all pretty aware of providing the fair market value, letting them know what the take would be, and allowing them to respond to negotiating. Ultimately, we would file the condemnation, and the condemnee would have the opportunity to respond. Frequently, of course, you know that once we file the condemnation, there's, in certain cases where there's a friendly condemnation, as we would say, the value isn't challenged. And so the court will ultimately end up paying the proceeds. We pay into the registry of the court the amount that the property has been valued at and assessed by our appraiser. And so that is in with the registry of the court when we file the condemnation. And so if no challenge is filed, ultimately the case ends up getting closed out and the court pays the proceeds to the condemnee. In the cases where, which are the ones that you've heard of more frequently and which potentially could be the case here, depending on what you choose to do, when the condemnation is filed, once we've perfected service and everything, we still have possession of the property. It's not stopping the take, if you would. And that's how we're able to meet the deadlines for construction projects. The case, however, remains pending for what you just said, which is to dispute the just and adequate compensation, what the condemnee will ultimately be paid from the registry of the court. So we still pay that initial amount, that amount that's referenced in the resolution and the supporting documents, which is based on our appraiser. However, as the case proceeds, once the challenge is filed, we go through discovery. It's kind of a battle of the experts at that point. If we have to update our appraisal, if we end up with more from an updated appraisal than what is paid into the registry of the court, we have the city issue additional funds, and whatever we end up either receiving a judgment for or a settlement for will be what is paid out. And that's just going through the typical litigation process of having experts conduct further appraisals, exchanging documents, conducting depositions, and moving forward through that process.
Thank you for the question. I think I've had a little more insight in how those works. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon to have these questions. I think it's important for us to understand that we're not the final decision maker on this. And I know that you'd prefer not, as a property owner, to have to go through that process, and we'd prefer not to have to go through that process either. But quite frankly, if we can't come to a consensus, I think I'd rather have a judge decide this than the seven of us, because there is a legal process for resolving that. Councilman Dorito.
Yeah, the only thing I'd point out, and tell me if I'm off base on this comment, is we should also be considering the risk of litigation, right? Or the cost of going through the process that was just outlined to the city.
So that's certainly always a consideration, and that's why you've given Director Sisevich a certain amount of authority to negotiate on the front end. So we may have an appraisal that is a certain amount. Property is obviously very personal to people, and so sometimes when the negotiations take place, they value it at a higher rate, not necessarily even because of an appraisal, but lots of different reasons. And that authority, that settlement authority you've given Director Sisevich is precisely to avoid litigation, correct? I mean, that's the whole reason for it. So with filing a condemnation, there are definitely legal costs. You all are aware that frequently when we come to you with condemnation resolutions, we're under a bit of a time crunch based on when the project is set to be bid out. We already have to have possession of the property by a certain date. It's my understanding from the director that that's not necessarily a component right now. I can't tell you that in looking closer at this that we're going to come back with a different recommendation, but that's something that we could follow up with and give you that additional information. If you wanted, we're not under quite of a time constraint as we have been in certain other cases. But ultimately, that the question of whether you want to pay more than, let's say our appraiser comes back with the same assessment is a risk assessment and a policy consideration for the council to consider.
Thank you, Ms. Aswine. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm hearing the same vibe right up and down, so I'm going to look to my fellow council members and mayor to make a recommendation to give this thing a couple more weeks. Can we get another appraisal within that time period, do you think?
Usually it takes us about 4 to 6 weeks.
I'll call one tomorrow.
It's our typical, we could always ask for a fast.
I would ask for that. I think she's entitled. There's hers, ours, and theirs. I'd like to see theirs. Somebody else come in.
We could also look at, we'll talk it over.
And then at that point, I think we as a council have to make a decision, even with our friendships and relationships with the applicant here, which is a reality. And at that point, then it would have to go and have the judge. So if you call for a motion, I'll give you one.
I was just waiting for you to stop talking so I could call for a motion. Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask a motion to defer this item.
Second.
Is deferring?
Yeah, if we're going to defer, we need to go to a date specific, so I would, triggered by another event, so I would go to April the 28th, just as the next meeting. You all need to be comfortable making your decision. I think there's enough information here to make a decision tonight. I'm okay if we put it off to the 28th. We'll do our best to get another appraisal, but then we need to look at when you intend to go to bid for the project. So one meeting of a delay is fine, so if you'd make that motion to the April 28th meeting, that'd be great.
That would be my motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So the next item up is the resolution to condemn parcel 9 of the Cumming Street Corridor Improvements Project. Did I skip one?
That was one we just did.
Yep, okay, thank you. Resolution to condemn parcel 2 of the Cumming Street Improvements Project. Ms. Eswine, please read the resolution.
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta authorizing the city attorney to exercise the city's powers of eminent domain to acquire certain interests in property situated in the city of Alpharetta, Georgia for public purposes, including public transportation purposes. So as the mayor mentioned, this is for parcel 2, which is located at 155 Cumming Street. Here, the take is 0.02 acres for fee simple right-of-way, as well as 2,355 and 0.89 square feet for a temporary construction easement, and the value to be paid into the court is $22,200.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Eswine? Councilman Brady?
Just for a matter of procedure here, are we looking at all these as a table or just one in particular? Just for a matter of being fair, we're talking about Cumming Street and a take up and down. Is this a pause on all these on Cumming Street?
I think if anyone has no objection.
I'm just asking, so I didn't know.
I mean,
My motion was not for that. It was just for the first one.
so what was your motion?
I said, my first motion was just for the Bernard property, not the
Correct.
whole. Right.
Okay.
My second motion is to approve parcel 2 condemnation of the Cumming Street Improvement Project as presented tonight.
And we have no public comment cards on this, Mr. Mayor.
We're running out of public.
I was going to say, yeah, we don't have any public. We have one public.
Yeah, you
who
could
wants to
speak
come
again.
forward.
Okay. That's my motion. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Dorito. I was looking that way. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. It passes unanimously. So now we'll move on to parcel number 9, resolution to condemn of Cumming Street Corridor Project. Ms. Eswine?
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta authorizing the city attorney to exercise the city's powers of eminent domain to acquire certain interests in property situated in the city of Alpharetta, Georgia for public purposes, including public transportation purposes. As you mentioned, this is for parcel 9 of the Cumming Street Corridor Improvement Project, which is located at 243 Cumming Street. Here, the take is 0.03 acres of right-of-way and 1,623.1 square feet for a temporary construction easement. The just and adequate compensation to be paid into the registry of the court is $25,100.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mayor, move to adopt a resolution to condemn property interest in tax parcel number 22-498-212-540-108, parcel owner Richard and Ashley Skuyus, I hope I said that right, of the Cumming Street Corridor Improvements Project, parcel number 9, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Dorito, a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously, so we'll move on to the resolution to condemn parcel 17 of the Old Milton Parkway Improvement Project. Ms. Eswine?
Sorry. A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta authorizing the city attorney to exercise the city's powers of eminent domain to acquire certain interests in property situated in the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, for public purposes, including public transportation purposes. So this is for parcel 17 of the Old Milton Parkway Improvement Project located at 11550 Vista Forest Drive. The take here is 0.013 acres, as well as 972.818 square feet for a temporary construction easement valued at $30,000.
Any questions for Ms. Eswine? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if you'd like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council adopt the resolution to condemn the property interest in tax parcel number 11014300490289 of the Old Milton Parkway Project parcel number 17 and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Hypes, a second by Councilman Brady. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Final resolution to condemn is parcel 18 of Old Milton Parkway Improvement Project. Ms. Eswine, could you please read that?
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta authorizing the city attorney to exercise the city's powers of eminent domain to acquire certain interests in property situated in the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, for public purposes, including public transportation purposes. This property is for parcel 18 of the Old Milton Parkway Improvement Project located at 11555 Vista Forest Drive. Here, there is only 0.014 acres of right-of-way with no temporary construction easement, and the value is $19,400.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if you'd like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution to condemn parcel 18 of Old Milton Parkway Improvements Project. Resolution to condemn property interest and tax ID number 11-014-300-840012 of Old Milton Parkway Project, and authorization of the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Have a motion by Councilman Brady and a second by Councilman Will. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So that'll wrap up the new business portion of tonight's meeting. Well, if there's any public comments that would like to come forward at this time, now is your chance. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. Do we have any reports this evening? Councilman Will.
Mr. Mayor, I have a report tonight, and I'm going to unfortunately read a little bit of this because it's a long one. So today marks the start of the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. And we want to recognize our communications officers. These men and women are the people who are the glue to hold our public safety together. By that I mean when anybody has an issue, they call 911. So they are the first contact they have before we send police or fire. So this is their week. We want to keep these people in our thoughts. They are the backbone of what we do, and they are our heroes. Go 911.
Well said, sir. Once I became mayor, I came to acutely appreciate the fact that they are the tip of the spear, because they are always, almost always, the first contact they have in a really tough spot. So thank you for acknowledging that. Any other reports? Councilman Mitchell.
Was able to go to Johnny's retirement after 35 years in our fire department. Remind me of Johnny's last name. Gilbert. I always forget. But anyway, he's a super guy, and there were a ton of people that showed up for the event. And 35 years of dedication to our city is pretty remarkable in our fire department. So thank you.
Any other reports? So, Mr. Lagerbloom, the dreaded question is, do we require an executive session this evening?
And the unfortunate answer is yes, and the topic is litigation.
So, given that, I would like to call for a motion.
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second. To recess into executive session.
Motion to recess to executive session.
Second. Motion by Councilman Will. Who was the second? I'll take it. Mayor Pro Tem, second on that. All those in favor of recessing, please vote yes. We're missing Councilman Dorito and Councilman Brady. Now we are recessed. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a little while. Do we have a motion to reconvene?
So moved.
Yeah, we did.
Second.
Yes, we did. It was unanimous.
Yeah. So do I have a second?
Do we have a second on
Mr. Brady
reconvene?
seconded it.
Councilman Mitchell was the second.
Start pushing buttons.
All those in favor, please vote yes. And it is unanimous. We are adjourned.
That was to re-adjourn.
Oh, was that to reconvene?
That's to
I thought we already did reconvene. Y'all got me.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second?
Second.
Councilman Mitchell with a motion. Mayor Pro Tem, second. All those in favor of adjourning, please vote yes. Now we're adjourned.
Front and back.